Hey everyone, Dan here. We are after market close on Tuesday, August 3rd. We're going to take a look at Twitter today. Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. All right, well, Twitter was a request in a comment. Feel free to leave tickers in the comments if you'd like me to take a look at them. And there's a long list right now, but I'll do my best to get to it as soon as I can. So Twitter, yeah, it's definitely coming to an interesting formation point here on the 2 hour. If we give ourselves a little space here, we can take a look at a couple of things that are forming, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the indicators as well. So it has had this little bump up since late June, but what it's mostly doing is it's relatively range bound at the moment, meaning it's mostly just kind of staying between about here and about here, right, with a little bit of movement outside of that. What can happen during times like this, just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying for sure that it is in this particular case, but to just say that it often can happen. If something stays relatively range bound for a period of time, which it's more or less stayed in this realm since June 24th or so, with, like I said, a couple of stretches in either direction, but there can tend to accumulate a decent amount of purchase orders or limit buys above the range, and that could, if it's triggered, if it's hits, that could trigger a bunch of buys in a pretty short period of time. And in the same sort of fashion, there's a lot of potential limit sells sitting underneath this range that could get triggered if it stretches down and starts to trip a bunch of them off. So while it is in this range, I would just keep in mind that it could be kind of pointing to the next big move. Now, that can sort of be the case with any kind of coiling pattern. It's just sort of like winding itself up for its next big move. But I like to particularly watch it around this type of time frame of a few weeks, if it can make a move, because sometimes these stocks will consolidate for months and months, So this is sort of like an interesting time frame in my mind where we do have the possibility for some quick moves one way or another in either direction if it stretches. Now, the other thing that's forming here, if we see pretty clearly from these lows, we're making a bunch of higher lows, obviously, and then we're also dealing with these slew of lower highs that have stretched up here. We're on the 2 hour time frame, keep in mind. So this is for something more of I usually look at the 2 hour for something more of a several day to week or so position. Now this would tell me that if this can continue to hold, which it's sort of acting kind of strangely in the sense of it spent all this time at the top and just now it's reassessing the bottom. And you could sort of say that it established the bottom here, confirmed it there, and now it's doing its third confirmation. So there's always a question of whether or not these things hold, but to me this is still really kind of forming. And so if it can establish and get sort of more toward the mid-range of this flag, then that to me would sort of be more interesting and confirm that there could be a big movement coming out of this. Now, to the downside, or sorry, to the flag side here, this should be flagging out around August 12th or so, which is something like next Thursday or so. I could be slightly off on that. Let me see. The 5th is Thursday, 7 days. Yeah, so the 12th should push itself out right by close on Thursday, and that would only be if it continues to really work itself into this very tight kind of area here. It could easily move out of this before then, which is often what you see. It's very rare that it goes directly through the point. Now, it could also come to this point and not really do much of anything, to be honest. It could certainly come up and get to this point and then just continue to move sideways. That could also be the case. But often when we see this sort of formation happening, by the time it gets to this point, or even ahead of time, like I said, as it starts to get just less and less space within this flag pattern, it can often have a pretty abrupt move either up or down. And it's just sort of like wait and see which way it goes. But at least this way you're sort of like prepped and ready for, okay, big move up, big move down, and you can kind of jump in and take your strategy based on that, or stay out of it if you're sort of like, forget about this, I'm not getting involved in this situation. So that's what I'd be looking for on just sort of the chart side of things. Now on the indicator side of things, the MACD on, again, on the 2 hour is sort of like trying to quelch or squelch or quell, I don't know what word I was looking for there, but trying to diminish the bearish momentum that you saw here. And it's barely bearish momentum. It's nothing like the swing that we saw here with the bullish swing and then the bearish reply and then another comeback. So the bulls are sort of like evening out this. Yeah, there's a lot of really solid swings within this range that we've been in, right? And so right now it's sort of, like I said, it's kind of tightening itself into this smaller and smaller area. It's not really exploring the tops and bottoms of this range as much anymore, and we see that reflected in the MACD, where it was having solid swings that were kind of just transitioning from bullish to bearish, and now we see it kind of coiling up. So that could say to me, and to potentially, to the benefit of the bulls, it is accumulating slightly below the baseline, which would leave it more run room to the upside than to the downside. That said, it has had a decent run up recently, so there could be some additional downside potential for sure. To me, this is, again, this is just a clear one of those situations where it's just sort of like it's likely gearing up for a big move. It's hard to tell which direction because it's just kind of winding itself up. But when it starts to unwind, then we can keep our eyes peeled and have sort of like eagle vision on it to know which way to play it, because anticipating that the next move is a big one is sort of the first step in being able to take advantage of an outsized outsized potential play. Now the RSI sitting below the midline, and it's sort of struggled to hold the midline lately, and we see it making a bunch of lower highs here on the RSI. So that would again point us in the direction that that bearish momentum that we see reflected in the MACD is continuing to play out on the RSI as well. Like nothing is diverging there and kind of pointing in a different direction. And it is sitting at the bottom of this flag, so that could say one of two things. Either those are both about to sort of pick up, meaning the MACD is about to cross over and head us back toward the baseline, and the RSI is about to make another attempt back at the midline and see if it can do anything there, and that would sort of keep it in this pattern. On the MA side of things, oh, I thought I lost my MAs there. They too are coiling up, and to me, the way I usually like to play these to figure out which way things are going. So right now, we are in sort of a mixed pattern, meaning it's not fully in a bullish formation, it's not fully in a bearish formation. You have the 20 sitting dead between the 50 and the 200. That said, the 20 did today cross below the 50, which is a bearish crossover, heading toward the 20. Now, if Twitter can string together a few more green candles here, that could easily reverse and we'll be back in a bullish formation. But it is good to see all of these things kind of saying the same thing. The MACD, the RSI, the MAs, and the candlestick patterns, as well as the overall range-bound pattern that we see within this stretch of a few weeks, they're all indicating at this like strong consolidation, which again is sort of like pent-up momentum that could unleash very vigorously one way or the other. And to me, the best way that I like to capture that is with the MAs. So as they start to unravel strongly in one direction or another, that becomes very apparent. If the 20 jumps above the 50 and the 50 takes off and chases the 20 and the 200 starts to come up behind them, then we're in a strong bullish move. That's where we could test the upper bound of, well, I guess first this downtrend line, but then this range, and that could then be what triggers these potential buy orders, if they're even there, I don't know. But then on the other hand, if the 20 starts to an abrupt move down and that drags the 20 with it, and the 50 comes down even further, then we would see essentially a bearish formation at that point, where the 200 would be on top with the 50 below it and then the 20 below that, and that would sort of indicate to me that, okay, we're racing to break through this uptrend on the downside, and then we're going to test this lower bound of the range, which could then set off a bunch of sell orders that sit below that range, if they are there at all. But that's what I'm going to be looking for in the coming days. At a bare minimum, if it would be really interesting if it stays within this and ends up with a few additional days of pent-up momentum or aggression, however you want to look at it. But by next Thursday, I would anticipate some move one direction or the other, and the longer it stays in there, the more likely that could be a pretty strong move in either direction. But I'm mostly going to be watching, like I said, those MAs to see which way that's unraveling, and kind of use that to determine that, okay, there's a big bullish move or a big bearish move coming. All right, well, that'll do it for this one. I appreciate you watching. I hope your trading week is off to a good start, and I will see you in the next video.